What is the most dangerous but totally legal item you own? Story 1, I got this in the bag. My almost 2-year-old. 2 nicknames. The black hole. No food is safe. Her plate. Yours. Her brother's. The fridge, not even the cat food. 2. The banshee exposure of 10 minutes or more can and will lead to temporary hearing loss. Will come back as deafness around 60+ years of age, guaranteed to need hearing aids. Kid is just starting to get into 18-month clothes and turns 2 at the end of March. About 30 pounds, and I have seen her go through an entire package of Kraft mac and cheese by herself. Asterisk. She does not have tapeworms. She is a danger to anyone's grocery budget and grapes everywhere. Story 2. I have a table saw from the 1920s. Retrofitted several times, but never once with any type of safety. Plus, the RIP fence rail is not quite square, so if you cut a large board with it, there is a guarantee it's going to fly across the room. I own it, but I never use it for anything other than cross-cutting standard lumber. And even that is stupid since I own 4 more table saws and 6 chop saws. Story 3. Statistically, my tiled floor gets slippery when wet. My bed frame is hard and pointy. My swimming pool is no longer surrounded by a child-proof fence. My dogs have hard and pointy teeth. There are wasps and bees in my backyard. I own 5 automobiles. They haven't killed anyone yet, but they could. But I I hoard coronary vascular plaque. I piped my house to carry cholesterol, fat and fibrin all over. My pool holds 24,000 gallons of vascular plaque. I recently installed a new roof with fibrin shingles, and I live in the South. My neighbors can't resist my vascular plaque. Story 4. Back in 1994. Worked at WTC selling hot dogs in a cart. Packed up at the end of day, left an empty cardboard box while I was putting stuff back inside. Naive 16-year-old me didn't think much of it. Didn't watch the news about a terrorist attack recently, LOL. 5 minutes I come back to my cart to throw away the box and I'm surrounded by cops. Ah! Who'd have thought an empty cardboard box would be that dangerous? Story 5. Not me. Sister-in-law has a periodic table my brother got her for an anniversary. It has samples of each element encased in the glass frame. Several of the radioactive ones, like curium and plutonium, are excluded for cost and safety reasons. But several others are actually included, like thorium and uranium. The sample sizes are small enough we're not too worried about radiation, but we've never actually crunched the numbers on how dangerous the sum of its radioactive elements are. Story 6. For those that partake cigarettes. Of course, the obvious that they cause cancer in a huge percentage of users, but let's not forget fires. According to the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, from 2021 to 2016, an estimated annual average of 18,100, 5%, reported home structure fires started by smoking materials, including cigarettes, pipes and cigars, killed an average of 590, 23%, people annually, injured 1,130, 10% per year, and caused $476 million in direct property damage, 7% per year. There's about 36000 fatal car accidents per year. That's only double the number of house fires caused by cigarettes. I realize that's a bit apple to oranges, but still interesting. Story 7. I know this will sound stupid, but disqualifying firearms and blades, it's actually a Nerf blaster. Here's the story. A couple years ago, I had the bright idea to create the most powerful Nerf blaster that I could. I found a 3D printed shell for it, added an airtight barrel, rifling, and chambered it for half-inch wide rounds. This beast shoots a thumbtack-tipped dart at 678 feet per second, and if I add a special 3D printed tip to a foam dart, it will penetrate skin, then unfold like an actual hollow point. Story 8. Besides the really obvious ones, like firearms and motor vehicles, in normal operation, probably my power tools: bench grinder, table saw, miter saw, wood lathe, chainsaw, circular saw, and such. With regard to potential malfunction leading to catastrophic failure, my garage door, specifically the springs, and hot water heater. Oh, and our in-ground swimming pool. Story myself. I kill loads of animals for personal consumption. My car alone has a body count in the several thousand, if we're counting insects and rabbits who are suicidal and run right into my fucking wheels even when I try to avoid them. My dog digs it though, he'll lick the fenders when they get gross. Story 10. Muriatic acid. A friend bought an auctioned rental property and asked for help cleaning. While we were surveying the nasty bathroom, he poured muriatic acid straight from jug into the bathtub. It hit us so fast and we scrambled out, but I feel like it's a miracle we didn't pass out or worse. So I guess it's being dumb plus muriatic acid. Story 11 IDK about individually, but reading the replies and noticed I have 74 tablets of paracetamol, upwards of 70 cl of vodka, 70 cl of honey JD, 70 cl of gin, and 2 big kitchen knives left in my wooden block. So it depends on if the danger is to myself or others, but combining it all sounds like a very bad night. Story 12, probably my miter saw. Maybe my Jeep? It's got a stinger bumper. If someone cuts me off and I can't slow down in time, they're in trouble. INB4. I shouldn't have put big tires on an already lifted Jeep that already had a stinger bumper at the time of purchase, and I shouldn't have purchased a vehicle that wasn't factory spec. But the state of my vehicle doesn't make it any less irresponsible to cut someone off. Don't cut people off. Don't have problems. Story 13. Probably my old Chevy truck. One wrong move in the highway and I can kill myself or someone else. Also very dangerous when mixed with the wrong chemicals like alcohol, for instance. It could kill others if they aren't paying attention around it. Story 14 car. People 200 years in the future will say, those barbarians in the 1900s, and even after, used to drive 2,000 pounds of metal with 13 gallons of explosive toward each other, head on, at 60 plus mph. If driving a car wasn't commonplace, it'd be crazy. Story 15. I own a variety of so-called household chemicals that, with the right measurements, could kill a crowd of people in terrible ways that they'd probably not know how to escape from in time. Violate the Geneva Convention at the very least. Thankfully, I only vaguely know not to mix certain ones while, say, cleaning, and not what amounts are needed intentionally without looking them up on the internet. Plus, I have no desire to harm people. I remember one of my friends said about TSA, if they are afraid I have the skills to kill people and take over a plane with a pair of nail clippers, I won't need the nail clippers. Story 16. I have an old Arian snowblower. It has a hand lever on it just like a new one, but instead of holding it to make the thing move, you hold it to make it stop. If the machine gets away from you, it will just keep going, eating whatever is in its path until it hits something that can stop it. No, I don't use it. Story 17. My set of carbon fiber steel tipped knitting needles. Some of them are pretty small. The tips are super sharp, for lace knitting of very fine yarn, and they are 100% legal to take on an airplane. My husband is actively scared of them and winces when I bring them near him. Yeah, I could pretty easily hurt someone with them, but that would get blood all over my needles, and I don't want that. Story 18. I have a vegetable oil extractor tube. It's perfectly legal to use it to extract oil from things like flowers, etc. Nobody does. Everyone pumps butane through it to make butane hash oil, which, if done improperly in an open-loop system, has the chance of becoming a pipe bomb, exploding, and killing you. The same can be said if you don't do it with weed, but just use any regular flower, hence why the thing is legal. That being said, it's insanely unsafe to own and use, and creating BHO, dabs, with it carries the same charge as making meth. It's a massive crime. Very unsafe, barely legal, very risky. Story 19. I have a McCulloch 797 chainsaw. It's like 50 pounds and a 23 inches, not stock, blade. As far as I know, my grandfather bought it in 1969, 1970. My dad used it all throughout my childhood. 15 years ago, Dad asked if I wanted it. I sure did. I've used it twice since. Damn good saw. Also, I have several 3D printers, and according to some idiots in NY, that is as dangerous as a firearm. I'm left leaning as all hell. Super pro-gun rights. But I think they should be heavily regulated. However, requiring background checks on all who want to buy a 3D printer CNC machine is dumb AF. Story 20. I have a slicer/dicer/grater thing. It's supposed to be for slicing vegetables, kind of like a mandolin, and also chopping into small pieces. This thing is lethal. It has a finger guard, but I still manage to slice myself. The grate that chops things is even lethal when you have to wash it. Gets me every time. And I also have a machete that I sort of inherited. Story 21, I own one 000cc plus sports bikes. Any biker who tells you bikes aren't dangerous is fucking delusional. Things need to be treated with extreme caution. One of my bikes is a tuned 1986 GSXR. It's an absolute fucking animal with 30-year-old tech and literally zero safety features. Ridiculously good fun, though. Story 22, Check's car collection. Maybe the 65 Fastback with no power steering that handles like the wheels are giant ice cubes? No, that's not it. Check's gun collection. Maybe that inertia Franchi that is hang fire sometimes? No, I can find something worse. Check's knife collection. No, not the machetes, not the butterfly knives. Found it. I present to you a €5 purchase at a gas station. A flick knife that has the fidget spinner ball bearing mechanism so you can spin it. Things spilt more of my blood than the car crash I was in. It's so stupid I had to have it, and I'm so stupid I have to play with it. Story 23. 2 different controlled substances. I'm only allowed to own 1 bottle of each at a time, and I have to take urine tests to make sure the prescribed amount of the daily one is in my system, both to make sure I'm not taking too much, and to make sure I'm actually taking it and not stockpiling it. One is a potentially addictive substance, and the other is a key ingredient in meth. Even the amount I have is probably enough for a lethal overdose if I took the full bottle of either. IDK, I'm not sure what the lethal dosages of them are. At the very least, it would fuck me up real bad. They are both fairly common drugs for ADHD and anxiety panic attacks, and I have a prescription for both. Every once in a while I think about how wild it is that I'm allowed to have this stuff in my home, and how dangerous it would be if I didn't take it exactly as prescribed. Story 24. Ammonium nitrate. Actually, it's 3300 nitrogen fertilizer for my lawn, but I never keep more than about 10 pounds of it on hand at any one time. For context, Timothy McVeigh used about 500 lbs in the 95 OKC bombing, 50x the amount I keep on hand. So before anyone asks, I always follow the directions MSDS on anything I buy that could be considered a hazmat. I never use it for anything other than what it's intended for. I always store it in a plastic storage cabinet in my backyard, away from any flammable liquids, combustible materials, or other possible sources of ignition. I only purchase it locally from a reputable and established business. It can be extremely dangerous, if stored carelessly and in very large quantities. I think more people know now how dangerous it can be after seeing what it did to Beirut in August of 2020. But that was literally like 6 million pounds of it that was stored for 13 wires, in an old hangar warehouse that needed repairs, safety upgrades, with someone cutting metal, welding, near literal tons of stored fireworks. But I don't plan on doing any of those, so I think I should be okay, along with everyone else within a 5-mile radius of me, LOL. Story 25. I own a musket for home defense, since that's what the founding fathers intended. 4 ruffians break into my house. What the devil? As I grab my powdered wig and Kentucky rifle, blow a golf ball-sized hole through the first man, he's dead on the spot. Draw my pistol on the second man, miss him entirely because it's smoothbore and nails the neighbor's dog. I have to resort to the cannon mounted at the top of the stairs loaded with grape shot. Tally-ho, lads! The grape shot shreds 2 men in the blast. The sound and extra shrapnel set off car alarms. Fix bayonet and charge the last terrified rapscallion. He bleeds out waiting on the police to arrive since triangular bayonet wounds are impossible to stitch up, just as the founding fathers intended. Story 26. My car. It's even more dangerous than my gun. Most people don't realize how terrible cars are for society. It's dangerous because it's used every day and has a chance to kill you and or me every time I get inside it. Meanwhile, I don't use my gun every day, and I can be much more careful where I point a gun than drive a car. Story 27. Guns. Every single one is legally registered, but every one of them should be treated as dangerous, all the time, no exceptions. It's surreal how many kids get a hold of their parents' guns, how many negligent discharges there are, and how many morons open carry an AR-15 in public spaces as if they're proving a point. Treat guns with respect. Don't make them your entire personality and keep them out of reach from everyone but yourself. Bah. Story 28. I own 2 book openers. I had them custom-made and monogrammed. They are essentially 2 pieces of lead inside a leather casing designed to be spread out across the top of a book to hold it open as you read. Obviously, there is no difference at all between these book openers and a blackjack, except for the shape. And if you have ever been in a situation where you have had to use a blackjack, you know that they can be very dangerous to the person using them, as well as they are designed to be slightly flexible. But if you swing them more than once, they can put a lot of strain on your wrist, and because they're heavy and tend to be slick, without a lanyard, they can slip out of your hand. But these book openers are completely flexible, not just but bendy. It's only leather and stitching that connects them in the center. You hold one lead ball in your hand, and the other comes down with a ridiculous amount of force. Yes, they set off metal detectors, but if you always have a book with you, it seems plausible that you need one. And if it's monogrammed, it only stands to reason that you're completely comfortable with everybody knowing it's yours. I carry one with me whenever I think it might be needed, and the other one is a backup in case I need to get rid of the evidence after using the first one. I have had to use it 3 times in self-defense over the course of the last 15 years. Each time was an occasion where I returned to my hometown after years of being away, as it is and always has been a rough area. One time there was a group of wannabe gangsters who picked the wrong guy to get a little physical with. I won't detail exactly what happened, but my little chum making an appearance was definitely justified, and I'm sure there were a few people who learned a valuable lesson that day. The next time was an altercation with a very aggressive drunk, on a day when it was pouring rain, to the point where it was bouncing off the pavement, and so loud that it was like being under a waterfall. The drunk refused to listen to reason. I had my brother's girlfriend with me, and guaranteed that guy went through a very, very painful recovery. The last time I'll stay mum about because it was the most serious. I was hurt, and I hit back hard enough to question whether or not the other guy left the scene in an ambulance or a coroner's van. These things are not illegal. I have had cops wave me right through with them sticking out of my back pocket, despite the fact that if used in a way they were never intended to be used, they can be quite deadly. Story 29. I own guns. I own a table saw, chainsaws, vehicles, a blowtorch, angle grinder, circular saw, 240-volt receptacles, via my house lol. I have a can of gasoline, propane tanks, fire pits, even a pool FFS. All of these can be dangerous, but if used properly, they're actually perfectly safe. But box cutters, utility blades, holy shit, man. If there's one thing with the highest chance of seriously hurting you, it's that, yeah, the damage might not be as bad as a gunshot, but I'm about 10,000x more likely to slice through my finger than I am shoot mated or drown. Story 30. My husband built a knife for me last year for Xmas. He just wanted to make a knife as a project. It's cute, but not well made, that is. It feels flimsy, and like the blade will break away from the sheath under any force. If I ever tried to use it for actual knife things, I fear a bad injury at worst and fail to slice at best. It's a display piece now. Story 31. Depends how you define danger, because to me danger consists of two elements: the potential to cause harm, how much damage, loss of life, injury is possible, and the frequency of that potential. So for instance, my car is very dangerous because stats show that people are killed and injured by cars in the thousands on a daily basis. So the frequency is high because I'm exposed to the danger all the time I'm behind the wheel and anytime I'm near a roadway. I spend most of my life on the road, so my frequency is even higher than the average citizen. The potential to cause harm, however, ranges from minor injuries to, let's say, a few $1 million in property damage and multiple deaths. Those consequences are more likely the more minor they are, and less likely the more major they are. Now I own disk drives and books that have information on them. The likelihood that I will ever use that information for anything that could cause harm is extremely low, like on the scale of 2 hydrogen atoms committing spontaneous fusion in total vacuum. So the frequency is extraordinarily low, but the potential harm is immeasurable, really. Ideas are what start wars, install revolutions, create political ideologies that kill millions, and even potentially billions. Ideologies might still be the death of the human race for all we know. So super low frequency, super high potential, or very high frequency, and moderate potential, I know which one is more dangerous historically and will continue to be more dangerous as we move towards automated systems of travel. Story 33. Not inherently dangerous, but my grandfather willed me a bayonet that his uncle took from a German he killed on Normandy Beach. The only stipulation was, I had to restore it. Leather scabbard wasn't properly treated and oozes nasty fat deposits. The real dangerous part, though, when his uncle died, my grandfather found the bayonet and a grenade that were German-made. My great-great-uncle held onto a literal grenade from 1944 until around 2000 without incident. That one he had the police come and take. Grandpa was Army too, so it wasn't his first rodeo, but I can't imagine the pucker factor finding a 60-year-old grenade on Uncle Joe's sock drawer. Story 34. Peakson JPX Pepper 2 Blaster. Hun, I'd never carry it. It's a glorified mace sprayer with 2 shots. It's still used in Germany by Leos, but American ones blinded people for life with these things, so none for them. But still legal and not a firearm, 'cause has the force of a shotgun from a pistol but fires pepper with a chemical, non-gunpowder mechanism, so ATF says not a firearm. Story 35. I have a ton of dangerous items that are legal, but probably the most dangerous would be my plasma cutter. I own tons of swords, a crossbow, my forge will burn the skin and muscle right off your bones. My lathe could do quite a bit of damage if you're not careful. 3 welders could even make you go blind. The plasma cutter, though, is probably the only one even I'm really careful with. If you mess up, you could have liquid metal all over your hands. The forge could do more damage, but you'd have to be pretty stupid to place your arm inside. The plasma cutter could just hit a deep spot. It's not able to cut through all the way, so instead it pools molten metal and the air pressure splashes the metal onto you. Story 36. Replica Beretta Co. 2 BB pistol. Canada, so no real guns allowed. That BB pistol packs a bit of a punch, though. If whoever breaks in and eats a full 22-round full automag dump to the face and wants to keep trying, they'll just meet Mr. T-ball bat. Then if they get injured breaking into my house and I hurt them, I'm going to end up getting charged. Fuck this country. Story 37. I'm Utah. You don't have to have a background check, bill of sale, or pretty much anything to buy a gun from a private seller. I texted a dude off an online classified site, met up at a parking lot. I gave him a few $100 and he gave me a pistol, 2 magazines, and a box ammo. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that proves I own said pistol. Even as I was driving home, I realized this is not a good way to go about this. Story 38, dangerous to others. My car. Dangerous to myself. An internet-connected computer. I could absolutely destroy my future with the internet and a Tor browser if I really wanted to. I of course don't, but it's kind of insane to think about how dangerous something so ubiquitous can be. Story 39. A gun in Arizona, USA, but that's obvious. The better answer is my 1967 Camaro. Steel-bodied beast with no airbags, basic lap belts in the front seats and no seat belts at all in the back. Power steering, but old-school suspension that makes me grind my teeth with stress driving on the highway. Drum brakes on the back wheels that make it so you really have to push the pedal to stop, and I'm not always confident it will. And I've been told by experts it's in relatively good shape. I've loved these cars since I was a kid, total dream car, but shortly after I bought it, I realized I needed to spend as much as the purchase price on upgrades to modernize it and improve safety because I've grown up with cars with modern safety features. In my obsession with how cool it looks, I ignored the fact that auto accident deaths didn't decline substantially in the last 50-plus years by, well, accident. I'm sure some purist gearheads will tell me a classic car is supposed to be like this. It's part of the charm. But I'm still not going to put my young nieces or nephews in that thing longer than a drive around the block until I can put some more money into making it safer and reliable. But fuck does it sound and look cool. If all I get to do is look it in my garage and hear the sound of the engine from the driveway, I'll probably be just fine. Story 40. My late cat took out multiple grown, muscled movers as he bounced between them. It was kinda glorious to witness because he had not a single mean bone in his body. He was just determined to get away from them. He also cut my brother up so badly he kept the bloody, ripped-to-shreds shirt as a badge of honor, because we were walking him in the backyard of our old house, and he got scared of the clothesline wobbling. Story 41, a motorcycle. I have to remind myself sometimes that I'm 32 times more likely to die getting on that thing versus driving in a car on any given day. It's a tank of 5 gallons of gasoline sitting atop a giant chunk of metal with internal components rotating more than 6,000 times a minute that also just so happens to be filled with scalding hot oil. Oh, and if one of those 2 tires explodes while I'm on the highway, or one of the 123 individual chain links snaps while also rotating a few thousand times a minute, I'm hitting the pavement at 70 miles an hour. That's also assuming I don't get hit at a stoplight, or get cut off by some douchebag left-hand turner who makes a turn without looking. Story 42. Okay, so not me, but my great-uncle retains his dad's, my great-grand-grandpa, gillnet fishing license. It's grandfathered in from what I understand. My uncle doesn't gillnet fish as it's extremely destructive ecologically, and he's something of a conservationist, but his dad lost most of a finger to the nets as a boy, and from what I understand, such injuries were not uncommon. Story 43. I don't have it anymore for reasons that will soon be very clear, but it was a bow staff. I learned with one in a stage combat class, so when I saw a retractable one on Amazon, I had to have it. This thing was amazing. You pulled out the pin, threw it in the air, it sprang open and you caught it. Badass, right? Well, it was also metal with sharp edges all around it, like the entire length and circumference. There was really nowhere safe to grab it, but I didn't know that until after I opened it the first time. I caught it like a champ and started cussing up a blue streak because I'd sliced my hands open. Then I very carefully shoved it back down using my booted foot and put the pin back in place before chucking it in the closet for when I felt a little bolder. Unfortunately, I never felt bolder, so my boyfriend discovered it. When he asked me what it was, I told him how it was supposed to work and how it actually had worked. He was convinced that I had just grabbed it at the wrong moment, so he pulled the pin. He didn't catch it, so he didn't cut himself. But he also didn't throw it very far, or at the proper angle he was also sitting on the couch. So he ended up taking the full impact of an uncoiling metal rod directly to the nuts. I bought a wizard staff to fill the void, but we are not allowed to have spring-loaded blunt force weapons in the house anymore.